This is the story of a poor girl named Mu Xiang, who is in her high school years. Mu Xiang studies at Yichang, the most prestigious private school in her country, which is essentially a school for rich kids. Only children from wealthy families study here, but Mu Xiang got admission thanks to her intelligence and a scholarship. That's why she has to work extra hard in her studies to ensure that she doesn't become a burden on her family and can make a lot of money in the future. While pondering over all this, Mu Xiang's eyes land on her classmate, Jiang Hai. Jiang is just as intelligent as her, and Mu Xiang notices him quite a bit because she has a crush on him. But even as she admires Jiang, Mu Xiang knows she can't confess her feelings because their social statuses are worlds apart. One day, Mu Xiang is gazing dreamily at Jiang when another girl catches her in the act. This girl's name is Shi, and she absolutely hates it when anyone even dares to look at her Jiang. Shi, who is a class bully, decides to teach Mu Xiang a lesson. After class, Shi and her gang lock Mu Xiang in the washroom. Shi, being the classic rich and arrogant brat, enjoys bullying Mu Xiang because she's poor and smart. Mu Xiang shouts for help, but the girls leave her locked in. After some time, someone finally unlocks the washroom door, and in doing that, one of the buttons on his shirt falls off. When Mu Xiang came outside the washroom, she saw the button on the floor. Picking up the button, Mu Xiang realizes that, for the first time, someone has actually helped her in this school where no one even talks to her because she is poor. But she couldn't see who it was. Cut to the next character, we meet the quintessential rich bad boy, Chao Nan. He is a speed biker, a taekwondo champion, and a winner of multiple trophies. But when it comes to academics, he couldn't care less. In fact, he has no intention of ever studying. On top of that, he is self-centered, full of attitude, and convinced that no one can beat him. During one of Chao Nan's matches, a school teacher, Sir Go, shows up. All the students scatter, but Chao Nan couldn't care less. Sir Go drags him to the office and starts scolding him, but Chao Nan just stares at him blankly, as if nothing could bother him. While this is happening, Mu Xiang enters the office to submit her scholarship form. That's when she notices Chao Nan standing there and realizes his shirt is missing a button, the exact button she found earlier. It doesn't take Mu Xiang long to piece together that Chao Nan was the one who helped her. Meanwhile, Sir Go continues scolding Chao Nan, but the guy's as cool as a cucumber. He even smirks and talks back, which only makes Sir Go angrier. Just as things heat up, Mu Xiang interrupts by shouting about her scholarship form, diverting the teacher's attention. Sir Go assures Mu Xiang that the school will support her as much as possible due to her financial background. Relieved, Mu Xiang leaves the office, while Sir Go gives Chao Nan a final warning that if he doesn't improve, the teacher will expel him from school. Outside the office, Chao Nan runs into Mu Xiang, who stops him. She says she has something to give him. But Chao Nan, a self-absorbed rich boy, assumes that she is about to confess her love, so he says, "Sorry, I can't accept your love letter," and he just walks away. Poor Mu Xiang just wanted to return the button and thank him. Later, Chao Nan takes his girlfriend for a ride. Oh, and by girlfriend, I mean his beloved bike, which he treats like a person. While speeding around, he spots something unusual as a group of thugs bullying a middle school kid. Chao Nan, being the troublemaker he is, jumps in and tells them to stop. The thugs don't appreciate the interference and try to scare him off, but Chao Nan has been waiting for a chance like this. He punches a couple of them and scares them away. The boy thanks Chao Nan, but just then more thugs show up and they surround him from all sides. Chao Nan quickly devises a plan and signals the boy to run in the opposite direction while he distracts the gang. The boy escapes, and the thugs start chasing Chao Nan instead. Running for his life, Chao Nan bumps into his best friends, Guo Ji and Li Ming, at a supermarket. Seeing Chao Nan running like that, they instantly know he is in trouble again. They initially think about helping him, but as soon as they spot the thugs, their brains go, "Nope, not today," and they silently decide that self-preservation is the best strategy. Meanwhile, Chao Nan disguises himself and hides nearby like a pro ninja. Once the coast is clear, he joins his friends. But the thugs are smarter than they look because they figure out the disguise, and they come back for round 2. When Chao Nan and his friends see them again, they start running, tossing fish and other items from nearby shops in the process. A shopkeeper grabs the gang leader and demands money from him. Taking advantage of the chaos, the trio escapes again. Chao Nan heads in a different direction and ends up alone again. He keeps glancing back nervously to see if the goons are still chasing him. Meanwhile, Mu Xiang is riding her bicycle home and accidentally bumps into Chao Nan, sending him straight into a pond. Chao Nan panics because he doesn't know how to swim. The goons show up, but realizing they can't swim either, they leave Chao Nan to his fate and run away. Seeing this, Mu Xiang decides she has to help him. She uses her asthma inhaler, jumps into the water, and rescues Chao Nan. Both of them sit soaking wet by the pond. Chao Nan asks for her name, and Mu Xiang introduces herself. When Chaonan is about to share his name, Mu Xiang interrupts, saying she already knows who he is because his antics have made him infamous throughout the school. Chaonan tries to thank her, but she brushes it off, saying there is no need since she just repaid the favor for when he helped her earlier. With that, Mu Xiang picks up her bicycle and leaves. Once home, she carefully keeps Chaonan's baby taekwondo button as a souvenir. Now, according to Mu Xiang, her family lives in a tiny rented house and doesn't have much money. They spend only on essentials. Her father runs a grocery store, and their family struggles just to make ends meet. That day, fish was cooked at home after a long time, so Mu Xiang and her parents were really excited. Just as they were about to eat, they heard the landlady approaching. They quickly hid the big bottles of oil and sauces because their landlady was extremely stingy and dominating. She often took things from their shop without paying, so they only displayed small, cheap items. When the landlady was leaving with a small bottle, her eyes fell on the fish. She contemplated taking it too, but Mu Xiang and her father faked sneezing fits. Disgusted, the landlady left. Mu Xiang's father praised her, saying she was just like him, and they continued their dinner. Meanwhile, Chaonan was sitting on a bench ready to eat his dinner, which was just one sausage. A dog appeared, and Chaonan gave the sausage to it. Watching the dog feed its puppies, Chaonan smiled but quickly became emotional, thinking about how every parent loves their child, except his father, who doesn't care for him at all. At home, Chaonan's father and stepmother were discussing him at the dinner table. His father criticized Chaonan for being irresponsible and wandering aimlessly, while his stepmother was worried. According to Chaonan, she was indifferent since she was his stepmother. His father concluded that Chaonan was an adult now and should take care of himself. That night, Chaonan slept on the same bench by the roadside, while Mu Xiang went to bed after her long day. But something strange happened to both of them. They had the same dream where Mu Xiang was saving Chaonan from the water and his foot got stuck in some water herbs. Both woke up scared, only to realize something even weirder: they had swapped bodies. When Mu Xiang woke up in Chaonan's body, she found herself on the bench, being stared at by a cleaning lady. Confused, she touched her throat and felt an Adam's apple. Shocked, she checked her chest, screamed, and yelled, "Where did these two go?" She quickly ran off, and when she saw Chaonan's reflection in the water, she screamed even louder, wondering how she ended up in his body. On the other hand, Chaonan woke up in Mu Xiang's body and couldn't see clearly. When he checked himself, he found long hair, and upon hearing his own girly voice, he panicked. Spotting a pair of glasses nearby, he put them on and realized he was in a girly room. His small brain struggled to process this. He nervously picked up a mirror, hoping it was all a dream. But when he saw Mu Xiang's face staring back at him, he screamed at the top of his lungs. Back at Mu Xiang's house, she came running to her home and in Chaonan's body tried to convince her father that she was his daughter. But hearing a grown boy claim to be his daughter made her father think the boy had gone mad. But when Mu Xiang starts telling them all those things about the house that only they knew, her father gets scared because he feels like someone has been stalking his daughter. He pulls out his phone to call the police, but then Chaonan steps outside, and when Chaonan sees his body in front of his eyes, he starts shouting, saying, "That's me! What am I doing there?" Mu Xiang's father, utterly confused, demands to know what's going on as the chaos continues. Chaonan told Mu Xiang's father that they were classmates. He took her to his home because he knew no one would be there at the moment. Once inside, the two stood facing each other, wondering if slapping one another would confirm if this bizarre situation was real. However, they decided instead to slap themselves. Yet even after this, nothing was resolved. They moved to a mirror and began inspecting their bodies, shifting their positions to confirm their suspicions. An idea struck them. Perhaps, like in movies, all the people in this world have swapped their souls. To test this theory, they decided to observe Chaonan's father, since everything seemed normal with Mu Xiang's father. Chaonan pushed Mu Xiang to meet his father, though she hesitated. Nervously, when Mu Xiang approached him, his father started lecturing Chaonan about his studies, criticizing him and implying that if he continued this way, he would ruin the family business. Scared, Mu Xiang shows Chaonan's favorite doll in front of his father, who angrily throws her doll to the ground. Witnessing this, Chaonan realized his father's soul remained the same, treating him exactly as he had in childhood. Chaonan saw all his broken dolls scattered on the floor and felt a surge of emotion. Back in the room, Chaonan considered calling the police, thinking they could resolve this situation. But Mu Xiang stopped him, fearing that if others discovered their condition, the government might detain them for experiments. They decided to exchange phones for practicality. After searching for solutions, Mu Xiang came up with an idea, but Chaonan was frustrated by how Mu Xiang's long hair, now on his head, constantly fell over his face. The duo returned to the lake where Mu Xiang had once saved Qiaonan and where they had shared dreams of the same lake. They jumped into the water, hoping it might reverse the swap, but nothing changed when they emerged. Next, they thought of electric shocks, inspired by movies where souls switch back during such events. But they dropped the idea when they reached the tower. Nervously, they proceeded to a supermarket, placed their hands on a low-power electric heater, and received shocks simultaneously, but their souls remained in each other's bodies. Frustrated, Qiaonan came up with another idea, a kiss. He believed that maybe this might reverse the swap. However, when he leaned closer to Mu Xiang, she pushed him away, exclaiming, "What are you trying to do? It's my first kiss, you can't steal it like this." Embarrassed, Qiaonan apologized and tried to calm her down. They eventually sat outside, feeling defeated. Qiaonan, realizing that Mu Xiang's body was now technically his, he was enjoying it. Mu Xiang, however, suggested they manage their new bodies until they found a solution. She began explaining her routine and insisted Qiaonan attend all her classes, but Qiaonan, who had no interest in studies, didn't take her seriously. When Mu Xiang mentioned her part-time job, Qiaonan protested, saying he couldn't possibly handle both studies and work. However, Mu Xiang emphasized that her family's financial situation was dire, leaving Qiaonan with no choice but to agree. In return, he made her promise not to miss any of his taekwondo classes. Both reluctantly agreed to each other's terms. Soon after, Qiaonan's best friends arrived. Qiaonan, now in Mu Xiang's body, greeted one of them, Z, with a playful smack on the head as he usually did. Z was confused, wondering who this girl was and how she dared to hit him. Recognizing her as Mu Xiang, the reserved scholarship girl, Z questioned why she was acting so oddly. He pointed at her, only for Qiaonan to grab his finger and scold him. Mu Xiang's intervention calmed Qiaonan down. Meanwhile, Li Ming, another friend, was utterly baffled by their behavior. Finally, Qiaonan explained their body swap story. Hearing this, both friends were shocked. Li Ming laughed, assuming they were being pranked. He jokingly declared, "This must mean Qiaonan is dating this girl and they're teaming up to mess with us." He teased further by calling Mu Xiang in Qiaonan's body as their sister-in-law. Qiaonan denied these accusations and began questioning his choice of friends, realizing how ridiculous that they were thinking that he will date this body. Qiaonan and his two best friends take Mu Xiang to a sauna because they want to make their friend feel better. They hope the sauna will help him become cheerful again. But inside the sauna, Mu Xiang feels very uncomfortable and keeps her body covered. Z asks why Qiaonan is dating Mu Xiang when there are so many other girls at school, but Mu Xiang remains silent because she just wants to leave quickly. Meanwhile, Z and Li Ming, as usual, start rubbing each other playfully, which makes Mu Xiang feel even more uneasy. Outside the sauna, Qiaonan decides to enter the women's section because it has been his lifelong dream, and he doesn't know if he'll ever get another chance. When he sneaks in and sees the scene there, he gets so excited that he has a nosebleed and collapses on the floor, thinking he has finally reached heaven. However, he suddenly starts having a severe panic attack and struggles to breathe. Later, when Qiaonan regains consciousness, Mu Xiang tells him he needs to take care of his body carefully. Seeing this, Z and Li Ming are shocked that their usually cold and aloof best friend is going to such lengths for a girl. Meanwhile, Mu Xiang is only worried about her own body. She gives Qiaonan an inhaler, instructing him to use it regularly. She apologizes for her body being so weak, which angers Qiaonan, who starts glaring at her. After leaving the sauna, Mu Xiang hands Qiaonan the inhaler again, and he takes it while ordering some food. But Mu Xiang stops him, saying her body can't tolerate anything right now. This frustrates Qiaonan to the point where he feels like he might eat Mu Xiang instead. Mu Xiang eventually convinces him to go for his job interview, so Qiaonan reluctantly heads to it. However, upon reaching the location, he discovers that the part-time waitress job she applied for is at a hotel owned by his father. Inside the hotel, Qiaonan orders food and complains about how terrible it is, saying even animals wouldn't eat it. His father arrives and introduces himself as the hotel's chairman. Qiaonan bluntly tells him the food is awful, prompting his father to apologize. This secretly makes Qiaonan very happy, because he finally made his father apologize. Emboldened, he starts criticizing the hotel openly, and when a waiter tries to respond, his father silences him. This further angers Qiaonan, who accuses his father of only knowing how to control others since childhood, and storms out. Surprisingly, venting his frustrations leaves Qiaonan feeling relieved. Outside, Mu Xiang calls to ask about the job, and Qiaonan smugly thinks about how he gave a fantastic review instead of attending the interview. He tells Mu Xiang not to worry and claims that the restaurant mistreats its staff, so he'll find another job elsewhere. Meanwhile, Mu Xiang visits Qiaonan's luxurious house and tries to reassure herself that no one will notice her. She slowly enters the house, where she finds Chaonan's stepmother enjoying herself alone, watching TV with a face mask on. When the stepmother notices Mu Xiang entering, she becomes nervous, as does Mu Xiang, who starts backing away, silently praying the stepmother doesn't stop her to ask anything. Similarly, Chaonan's stepmother thinks to herself that it's better to avoid confrontation since Chaonan already hates her and will probably yell at her if he sees her like this. She awkwardly offers Mu Xiang some chips, but Mu Xiang politely declines, thanking her for the offer. The stepmother is stunned by Mu Xiang's politeness and wonders if the sun has risen from the west today. After this brief interaction, Mu Xiang leaves for the room, while Chaonan's stepmother is left in shock. Meanwhile, Chaonan, walking through a poorer neighborhood, notices the cramped houses and wonders how people can live in such conditions. Suddenly, Mu Xiang's father teases him with a magic trick and hands him a soft drink, knowing Mu Xiang herself doesn't spend money on anything. This makes Chaonan chuckle, and he accepts the drink. Later, when Chaonan returns home, he sees Mu Xiang's landlady carrying away some things from the shop without even paying. This reminds him of what Mu Xiang said earlier about not interfering. Despite being a spoiled rich brat, Chaonan can't tolerate injustice, so he confronts the landlady and demands money. The landlady initially thinks he's joking, but Chaonan chases her, corners her against a wall, and intimidates her by propping his foot on a table. He threatens her, saying if she doesn't pay the money back, he will never let her off. Frightened, the landlady gives him the money. When Mu Xiang's father sees this, he tells his daughter to leave her. He apologizes and returns the money, but the landlady doesn't take the money and she leaves shaking, mumbling that Mu Xiang must be possessed and needs a priest. Late at night, when Mu Xiang enters Chaonan's room and sees the massive bathroom and luxurious bathtub, she becomes excited, marveling at its size. Suddenly, it dawns on her that Chaonan might be showering with her body. Panic sets in, and she rushes to stop him. On the other side, Chaonan notices his button in Mu Xiang's room and realizes it belongs to him. This triggers a memory of when Mu Xiang talked about settling scores. He recalls the day when he accidentally opened the door to a girl's restroom and quickly left. That was the same day he must have dropped this button. It hits him that Mu Xiang might not have come to give a love letter, but only to return the button. Embarrassed, Chaonan texts his friends late at night, asking what it means if a girl keeps a boy's button safe. His friends don't miss the chance to tease him and convince him that the girl must be in love with him. This fills Chaonan with a false sense of confidence, and he starts believing that Mu Xiang likes him. Just then, Chaonan receives a message from Mu Xiang, saying she won't allow him to use her body to shower. Chaonan smugly responds that he has already changed clothes and seen everything, so there is nothing left to hide. Mu Xiang was frustrated, but when she enters the bathroom and sees Chaonan's body, she becomes extremely embarrassed and quickly rushes to take a shower herself. On the other hand, when Chaonan enters Mu Xiang's bathroom, he is shocked by its cramped and shabby condition. He wonders whether it's a bathroom or a cement box that starts and ends in the blink of an eye. At that moment, Mu Xiang's mother enters and casually suggests they shower together, which leaves Chaonan utterly stunned. He quickly chases her out of the bathroom. After his shower, Chaonan remains frustrated with Mu Xiang's hair, which keeps bothering him. Then he gets a text from Mu Xiang asking if his parents suspect anything. Chaonan reassures her they don't, and asks her the same question. Mu Xiang replies that she has no idea, but she overheard his stepmother on the phone, crying and telling his father that Chaonan had thanked her for the first time. Hearing this, Chaonan feels pleased, thinking that at least someone managed to make his stepmother cry. Mu Xiang then requests Chaonan to accompany her father on a grocery run over the weekend, saying it would be a big help. As they're texting, Mu Xiang's mother enters her room. Chaonan doesn't like this and yells that she should knock before entering. Hurt by his words, she leaves but knocks on the door before returning to hand her daughter her asthma medicine. After she leaves, Chaonan considers throwing the medicine away, but decides to take it, realizing Mu Xiang's body needs it. As Chaonan lies down to sleep, he remains annoyed by Mu Xiang's hair. Meanwhile, Mu Xiang's mother confides in her father, saying their daughter has been acting strangely and behaving oddly. Her father recalls the incident with the landlady but dismisses it, saying she'll likely return to normal in time and that she might just be dealing with school-related stress. The next morning, when Mu Xiang gets up and goes to dress up for school, she is stunned upon seeing it. The wardrobe is much bigger than the entire house of Mu Xiang and is filled with branded items. There is a collection of the best clothes and shoes. On the other hand, Chaonan is unable to understand how this girl is managing to live with so few clothes. She takes out some of Mu Xiang's clothes and starts cutting them, making his own style, but this girl's hair is always a big problem for him. Meanwhile, Muxiang starts her skincare routine and feels very happy because, in her entire life, she had only seen such branded and expensive items in commercials. After getting ready, Chaonan decided not to wear glasses and had already ordered contact lenses. He puts them on so that he looks good and he can see properly. But he is having a lot of trouble with the hair and doesn't know what to do about it. Meanwhile, Muxiang gets ready in her full uniform and arrives in the kitchen to look for ingredients to make her lunch. However, she is having difficulty finding things, and finally, she boils some eggs and uses the tea cakes kept there to make a very nice dish. After packing her lunch, Muxiang is about to leave when her stepmother sees her. She greets her, but her stepmother can't get over the fact that Chaonan prepared her own lunch. She finds it hard to accept. Muxiang says that she has also made breakfast for her stepmother, so she can serve it herself, and then she leaves for school. The stepmother was very happy and started serving breakfast, thinking she could eat peacefully. But suddenly, Chaonan's father shouted that he had placed an expensive tea cake on the table, which needed to be handled carefully, because he brought it for an important client. Upon hearing this, the stepmother is shocked, and as she picks up the tea cake, she finds it broken. Now she knows exactly what is going to happen. Chaonan's father glares at the tea cake and thinks that this boy has really crossed the line today, but the stepmother tries to defend him, saying he must have made a mistake and didn't mean to cause trouble for his parents on purpose. Meanwhile, when Muxiang's father calls her for breakfast, he sees his daughter fully ready to go, and Chaonan, as he leaves the house, says goodbye to Muxiang's parents. When both of them look at her, they feel like maybe the landlady was right, that Muxiang has become possessed. They barely recognize their own daughter now. Muxiang boards a public bus to go to school, while Chaonan speeds on his bike toward the school. On the bus, Muxiang sees the same gangsters who had chased Chaonan the other day. Seeing them, Muxiang gets scared and turns her face away, while the gangsters look at Chaonan, and they are also intimidated. Muxiang recalls what Chaonan had told her. Whenever she sees any of his enemies, she should just glare at them. So, Muxiang starts doing that, but instead of looking scary, she looks cute. The gangsters, too, begin glaring at her, but inside, both of them are worried that they might approach. However, Muxiang thinks she should talk to them, and as soon as she decides to move toward them, the gangsters run away, fearing the boy might attack them. At school, Shi is talking to her friend about how she got ready today to impress Jiang. Just then, they see Chaonan racing his bike into the school, but they don't understand how he has gotten so thin. Both of them then decide they should focus on their makeup, but their teacher stops them, especially scolding Shi for coming to school so dressed up as if it's a fashion show. They rush inside, and just then the teacher notices Chaonan, who is wearing his full school uniform for the first time, and he is shocked. He stops him and reminds him that if he doesn't focus on his studies, he will be expelled. Muxiang tells him that he will study, and she starts heading toward her class. Suddenly, she hears someone calling her name. When she turns around, she is shocked. Chaonan has completely changed her appearance. Not only has he altered her clothes, but he has also cut her hair. Chaonan tells her that there were no clothes suitable for him in her room, so he cut her clothes and hair because they were causing him too much trouble. Self-obsessed, Chaonan says to Muxiang that he has made her body look extremely attractive, and now it's perfect and she should be proud of it, and he casually walks away. Muxiang feels very bad about her hair, but she can't do anything, and just stands there with her hands clenched. Muxiang storms into the washroom and starts angrily ranting about the stupid and arrogant Chaonan. She blames him for cutting her beautiful hair, which she had spent her entire life growing. When she steps out, she glares at the boys outside and snaps, saying, "You boys are all selfish, foolish, and mean." The boys are left puzzled, unable to understand what went wrong with Chaonan. Meanwhile, Shi is being prepped by her friends with cologne and other accessories. She was determined to impress Jiang this time. When she enters the classroom, she begins behaving oddly and tries to seduce Jiang in a way that was admittedly quite funny. However, Jiang shows no interest in her antics or even in Shi herself and continues focusing on his studies. Frustrated, Shi leaves the class and complains to her friends about Jiang ignoring her completely. At that moment, they see Muxiang entering the class, looking entirely transformed. As soon as she steps into the room, Muxiang starts behaving like a reckless, carefree delinquent. The classmates initially think she is a new student, but when Chaonan approaches Jiang to ask about Muxiang's seat, Jiang points it out, and only then the students realize that this wild-looking girl is none other than the poor Muxiang. Shi feels jealous watching Jiang interact with Muxiang since he hadn't even acknowledged her. The students burst into laughter because, as always, they had placed a dead worm in Muxiang's book, a prank they regularly used to bully her. But when Chaonan notices this, he initially contemplates how bold these kids are to dare mess with him. Then instead of confronting them, he slams the book shut on the worm and lays his head down on it, clearly uninterested in fighting them. This leaves the students confused, wondering how the timid girl suddenly grew so daring. Zhang, on the other hand, feels happy that Mu Xiang finally stood up for herself. Later in the school corridor, the most beautiful girl in the school, Sora, approaches Qiaonan and gives him a gift. When she accepts it, Sora feels delighted and walks away happily, as it was the first time Qiaonan had spoken to her properly and accepted her gift. Back in the classroom, the students are being rowdy, but they all fall silent the moment they see Qiaonan enter. His intimidating presence naturally shuts them up since he's the kind of guy who keeps everyone in line through fear. Surprisingly, as the teacher walks in, Mu Xiang is the first to stand up and wish the teacher a good morning. The teacher is startled, wondering what had happened to make Mu Xiang suddenly so respectful. Following her lead, the rest of the students also greet the teacher respectfully, leaving the teacher completely shocked. As the lesson begins, the students, even Qiaonan's best friend, can't help but stare at him because he was sitting there studying diligently. This shift in behavior leaves everyone amazed. Did Qiaonan eat something strange? Meanwhile, in the classroom, Qiaonan was sleeping, and he stood up when Mu Xiang's name was called because, obviously, it was now referring to him. The teacher, annoyed by his behavior, began asking him questions. Qiaonan had no idea what was happening and started mocking the history teacher instead. The entire class burst into laughter, wondering since when Mu Xiang had become so funny and daring, even to the point of teasing teachers. Even Zhang smiled at her bold transformation, but Shi found this absolutely unacceptable. She decided to teach this new Mu Xiang a lesson. In the washroom, Qiaonan tried calling Mu Xiang to tell her about everything that had happened, but Mu Xiang didn't pick up because she was on break, happily enjoying her dessert. On the other hand, Shi was heading to the washroom with her friends and declared that she was going to show Mu Xiang what happens when someone crosses her. A boy from their class overheard this and ran to inform the teacher because he knew that Shi and her gang were ruthless and spared no one. When Shi and her Xians entered the washroom, the other girls standing there quickly ran out. Shi started banging on the door of the stall where Mu Xiang was and mocked her, saying, "Just because you cut your hair and changed your look, you think you're cool now?" When Qiaonan heard this, he thought, great, now I'll have to deal with girls too. These people bully Mu Xiang way too much. He stepped out, walked straight toward Shi, and intimidated her by moving closer. He began dragging her to another washroom, and this sudden turn of events made Shi's Xian scream loudly. In the new washroom, Qiaonan pinned Shi's legs with his, in a menacing tone, warned her that Mu Xiang had endured enough of her bullying. "She won't take it anymore," he said, slamming his hand on the door so hard that it cracked. This terrified both Shi and her Xians. As Qiaonan walked out, he looked at his hands, which were now bleeding, and felt the pain. He thought to himself, this girl's body is so fragile that she can't even handle small tasks like this. When he came outside, Qiaonan ran into the teacher, who noticed the blood on her hands and immediately guessed that Shi had bullied this girl. Sensing an opportunity, Qiaonan began fake crying and said that she and her gang had bullied her again. The teacher believed him without question. When Shi came out, the teacher scolded her harshly, saying, "First, you girls can't stop with your fashion nonsense, and now you've started bullying Mu Xiang this much?" She and her group were left speechless and tried to explain that they didn't hurt Mu Xiang, but the teacher didn't listen. Qiaonan had successfully turned the situation in his favor. The teacher sternly warns Shi and her gang that if they bully Mu Xiang again, they will be expelled. Witnessing this, Qiaonan feels overjoyed, and as he leaves, he even mocks Shi, teasing her before walking away smugly. Meanwhile, Mu Xiang's friends are dumbfounded to see her sitting quietly and doing self-study. They repeatedly urge her to come to taekwondo class, but Mu Xiang refuses. Unwilling to give up, his friends drag her there by force. Once in the class, Mu Xiang is utterly clueless about what to do. Her friend Li Ming suggests the captain should check everyone's muscles. At this, the male students take off their upper uniforms and stand in front of her. Seeing so many shirtless boys at once embarrasses Mu Xiang, and she covers her face. However, Li Ming grabs her hand and makes her touch his abs, saying that their muscles are now stiff, just as Qiaonan had instructed. Initially, Mu Xiang turns red with embarrassment, but as she touches the muscular bodies of the students, she starts feeling amused and even enjoys the situation. However, when she reaches Z, she notices that he doesn't have muscles, but just a skinny frame resembling a skeleton. Z tries his best to flex and show off, but with nothing there, it's pointless. Mu Xiang advises him to focus more on building muscles. Z, feeling determined, declares that he can still fight and challenges his captain to a match. Mu Xiang, completely clueless about taekwondo, stands awkwardly and hesitates to even move her legs properly. Nervously, she flails her arms around as Z advances and attempts his first attack. Trying to defend herself, Mu Xiang quickly reaches forward and accidentally grabs Zi's thighs, squeezing them so hard that he screams in pain, exclaiming, "What kind of move is this?" Watching this, Li Ming steps in to fight. Xiang, in panic, grabs his hair and pulls it hard, leaving him groaning in pain. The other boys feel like their boss is only testing their skills, so two students jump in to attack. Xiang, overwhelmed, scratches their legs with her nails, making them yelp in pain. Seeing the chaos, the rest of the boys charge toward their captain. Panicking, she starts throwing all the training equipment at them, yelling that she doesn't want to fight. The commotion becomes so loud that the teacher rushes in. Seeing everyone sprawled on the ground groaning in pain, the teacher immediately understands that they had been fighting amongst themselves. He angrily scolds Nan, warning him that if such behavior continues, he will shut down the taekwondo club for good. Xiang seizes the opportunity and tells the teacher that the taekwondo club should be shut down so everyone can focus on their studies. Hearing this, the teacher is both shocked and delighted, agreeing to close the club within a week. However, Nan's friends are enraged and begin shouting, asking how he could say such a thing. The teacher calms everyone and confirms his decision before leaving. After the teacher departs, all the club members vent their anger at Nan. They accuse him of ruining everything as their club is about to be banned, but Xiang pays no attention. Later, when school is over, Nan stops Xiang and confronts her about shutting down the club. He asks why she did it, and reminds her how important the club is to him. Xiang was unfazed, and she retorted by saying, "Now you know how it feels when someone ruins something important to you," referring to how Nan cut her long hair. The two start bickering, with Nan repeatedly pleading with Xiang to revoke her decision about the club, and she throws the ball on him. Just then, the teacher arrives and, seeing the argument, assumes that Nan is bullying a girl. He scolds him for his behavior as now he starts bullying girls too. Before she can explain, Nan seizes the moment and pretends to cry, accusing Nan of constant bullying, even claiming it's causing her physical pain. The teacher reprimands Nan and walks away, leaving her frustrated. Thus begins a petty war between the two as they try to ruin each other's lives in their swapped bodies. The next day, Nan shows up at school wearing a crop top, calling attention to himself by yelling Xiang's name. Standing by the windows, he flirts with the boys, making a scene and tarnishing Xiang's reputation further. Watching this, Xiang is enraged. Later, while the teacher is walking with important documents, Nan speeds past him on a motorcycle, causing the papers to scatter everywhere. Frustrated, the teacher picks them up while overhearing some boys talking about how Xiang has become bold and sexy lately. The teacher was confused, and he wondered how Xiang, a girl from a self-proclaimed poor family, could afford such an expensive bike. Determined to get revenge, Xiang decides to shave all the hair off Nan's body. As she works on this painful process, Xiang in his body screams in agony. At that moment, Nan's mother enters the room without knocking, only to find her son in this strange situation. Embarrassed, she quickly leaves without a word, leaving both of them mortified. After a while, Nan's stepmother brought several hair removal creams and tools and told Nan that if he ever needed a manicure, pedicure, or anything else, he could call her. Finally, Xiang helped remove all the hairs from Nan's body. The next day, on the basketball court, when the ball stopped near Nan, he stylishly attempted to toss the ball into the net. However, it turned out to be an embarrassment because the ball barely went a short distance. Nan was infuriated, thinking how weak this girl's body was as she couldn't even perform basic activities. He sat there and he was frustrated when Xiang approached him. Xiang removed his tracksuit jacket, revealing arms so radiant that Nan's eyes were dazzled. He thought about how this girl had transformed his body, but the real surprise was yet to come. Xiang removed his pants, revealing legs that were soft, silky, and smooth, shining brightly. Nan felt like banging his head in frustration. Meanwhile, Zi and Li Ming, who were watching from a distance, couldn't help but think that Nan's body was glowing even more than any girl's leg. Xiang kept flaunting his body, teasing Nan repeatedly. Angry, Nan declared that Xiang had started a war, and now he would ruin her image. During the lunch break, Nan sat down with Zi, Li Ming, and Xiang, carrying his meal, and he started flirting with Zi. Shocked, Zi spat out his food and warned the girl to stay away. If she doesn't do that, he will call the teacher. But Nan didn't stop there. He handed a meatball to Li Ming and began flirting with him as well. All the students' attention was now on them. Seeing this, Xiang stood up angrily and shouted, "Now watch what I'll do!" Shi and her gang were also watching. Shi commented that she had thought this poor girl was only chasing Jiang, but it turned out she was a playgirl, flirting with every boy in the school. However, Nan didn't care. He was thrilled to tarnish Xiang's innocent image. As he laughed and walked outside, he overheard two girls talking about Chaonan. Curious, he stopped them and asked what they were discussing. The girls showed him a video of Mu Xiang dressed up with full makeup like a girl, wearing bunny accessories, and acting like one in a video uploaded online. In the video, Mu Xiang was performing a girly dance with friends and inviting people to join their club. Chaonan's blood boils, and he decides that if this girl isn't stopping, then neither will he. Shouting, he storms into Mu Xiang's class and calls her out. Zi and Li Ming, on the other hand, had covered their faces with their uniforms out of embarrassment after the viral dance video. As soon as Mu Xiang stands up and Chaonan begins scolding her, Teacher Go arrives and instructs both of them to come to the office. In the office, Teacher Go scolds them, asking what exactly is wrong with the two of them. When Teacher Go turns to reprimand Chaonan, Mu Xiang, in Chaonan's body, apologizes earnestly, saying such incidents won't happen again. Seeing this, Chaonan is furious as how dare this girl in his body bow down before the teacher. The teacher then turns to Mu Xiang and scolds her for coming to school in inappropriate attire, for her declining grades, and even questions her about her expensive bike. Teacher Go warns Mu Xiang that if this behavior continues, her scholarship will be revoked. Hearing this, Chaonan sees an opportunity and sarcastically tells the teacher to go ahead and cancel the scholarship, adding that it doesn't matter at all. He then glances smugly at Mu Xiang, feeling triumphant. This, however, leaves Mu Xiang completely stunned, as if Chaonan had destroyed her life in a single blow. She knows that without the scholarship, she would be unable to achieve anything. Panicking, Mu Xiang bows before the teacher and apologizes sincerely for all her past mistakes. She even promises to follow all the rules and offers to apologize publicly to the entire school if needed. Watching this, Chaonan becomes frustrated, thinking he only fired a single metaphorical bullet. But Mu Xiang retaliated with a barrage of them. At the Taekwondo club, Mu Xiang begins tutoring the students, making them study instead of practicing. None of the students like this, as they had joined the club to avoid studying. Now even at the club, they are forced to study. Seeing this, the teacher is shocked and confused about what Chaonan is trying to achieve. The next day, Mu Xiang continues the study sessions, leaving Teacher Go bewildered, wondering if the Taekwondo club has genuinely turned into a study room. That night at home, Mu Xiang's parents watch her studying hard and think that their lives will improve soon once she gets a good job. However, Chaonan isn't actually studying in Mu Xiang's room. Instead, he is doodling in her books and even ruining her important notes. Just then, Mu Xiang's parents enter the room. Seeing their daughter behaving so strangely, they find it a bit odd, but think to themselves, at least she's doing something other than studying and her part-time work. This thought gives Chaonan an idea. He goes to Mu Xiang's father's shop and cuts up several of his mother's clothes into bizarre designs. Although Mu Xiang's parents are initially worried, Chaonan paints their faces, dresses them up in those weird outfits, and then pretends to be an eccentric character himself. He speaks absurd dialogues, mocks both her father and mother, and records the entire scene as a video. He then sends the video to Mu Xiang. When Mu Xiang sees it, she feels deeply hurt and angry at what Chaonan has done to her parents. To retaliate, Mu Xiang secretly makes a sweet and emotional video with Chaonan's stepmother. In the video, she eats cake with her and apologized sincerely and also lovingly said that he cares deeply for her and will start calling her mom from now on. When Chaonan sees this, his anger reaches its peak. He immediately calls Mu Xiang to meet him on the school grounds. When they meet, they start arguing heatedly again. During the quarrel, Chaonan starts gasping for breath. Mu Xiang tries to calm him down, and then she explains that he needs to take proper care of her body because if one of them dies, they'll both remain stuck in each other's bodies forever. Hearing this, Chaonan starts imagining a scenario where everyone sees him as a girl and marries him off to a boy. On the other hand, Mu Xiang thinks about how, if Chaonan doesn't stop his antics, her family might completely refuse to recognize her anymore. At the home, Mu Xiang's parents are busy sorting through everything that had been messed up, calculating how much loss they suffered because of their daughter's recent antics. Despite the damage, they are happy that at least she seemed genuinely cheerful for the first time in a long while. Just then, the landlady arrives and, not finding Mu Xiang at home, takes some items from the shop without paying. Mu Xiang's father looks at the situation and sighs, thinking another loss to add to the pile. Both Chaonan and Mu Xiang eventually sit down calmly. Mu Xiang suggests that they need to start respecting each other's bodies. Chaonan agrees, but he insists that Mu Xiang must revive the Taekwondo club and stay away from his stepmother. Mu Xiang accepts this condition and in return, makes Chaonan promise to treat her parents well, stay as distant from them as possible, and avoid wearing revealing clothes to school. They shake hands and agree to the terms of their deal. Meanwhile, Mu Xiang's father, who had been waiting for her, falls asleep outside the house. When Chaonan returns and sees him sleeping, he feels a pang of guilt. When Mu Xiang's father wakes up and invites her daughter inside, he warns her not to stay out late at night because it's dangerous. Hearing this, Xiao Nan feels regret for troubling them so much, realizing how kind Mu Xiang's parents truly are. The next day at school, Xiao Nan overhears his friends complaining about how the Taekwondo club still hasn't resumed practice and has turned into a study room instead. Now Xiao Nan is furious, and he storms into the club and yells at all the students to leave. However, none of them listen, questioning how a girl could boss them around. It is only when Mu Xiang speaks up that the students reluctantly leave. This enrages Xiao Nan even more, and he yells at Mu Xiang, demanding why she hasn't resumed the club's practice sessions. Mu Xiang, equally frustrated, shouts back that she was doing this to balance things out. She explains that most of the students joined the club to skip classes, which was unacceptable. She was trying to ensure that Teacher Go would approve of the club and not shut it down. Their argument escalates into a full-blown fight, with both shouting at each other. Teacher Go observes everything from outside the room but doesn't intervene. Finally, Xiao Nan throws a tantrum and storms out of the club, and he is visibly upset. Even outside, he scolds the students loudly, calling them useless and ordering them to go inside and do all the training. Hearing this, all the students assume that the girl has convinced their boss, so they all gather excitedly and start preparing to practice Taekwondo again. However, Mu Xiang stops them and tells them to go back to studying instead. This shocks everyone, and after some time, one of the boys gathers the courage to submit his resignation form, stating that he is quitting the club. Seeing him, the other students also hand in their resignations. Hearing this, Mu Xiang starts having a nosebleed out of fear. Because she was worried about what would happen if Xiao Nan finds out about the resignations, she is sure he wouldn't spare her. Finally, all the students sit together and Z tells Mu Xiang that he doesn't want the club to shut down because it has given him confidence. Due to his skinny physique, people used to mock him a lot, but joining the club made him feel secure and confident enough to go to school without fear. Li Ming also shares his story, and one by one, all the students begin to share their weaknesses and how the Taekwondo club has helped them overcome them. Listening to this, Mu Xiang realizes that Xiao Nan was right that the club is extremely important for all of them. She decides not to let the club shut down. Mu Xiang tears up their resignation letters and encourages everyone to resume their practice. She assigns them some exercises to work on. Hearing this, the students are overjoyed and start lifting Mu Xiang in celebration, thrilled that their boss has returned. Mu Xiang, seeing their happiness, feels very content. Meanwhile, on the other side, Xiao Nan goes to the school cafeteria and orders a plate loaded with food. The worker hesitates, saying that a girl won't be able to eat so much, but Xiao Nan insists and gets the plate filled. He then sits beside Jiang and orders Jiang's friends to leave. Jiang requests his friends not to leave him alone there, but no one listens to him. Seeing the enormous amount of food on Mu Xiang's plate, Jiang starts wondering if she can actually eat all that. Taking the opportunity, Xiao Nan asks Jiang if he likes Mu Xiang, catching him slightly off guard. Xiao Nan continues, saying that Shi believes Jiang likes Mu Xiang, which is why Shi bullies her. Jiang laughs and replies that he doesn't care what Shi thinks, but as for Mu Xiang, he finds her cute. He adds that although she has changed a little, she is still cute to him. Hearing this, Xiao Nan tells Jiang to meet him on the rooftop after lunch as he has something to discuss. Jiang feels a bit shy but agrees. By the end of lunch, Xiao Nan is struggling because he has eaten way too much food, thinking about how small Mu Xiang's appetite is compared to his. Watching this, Jiang starts doubting that the rooftop meeting will go well. Somehow, Xiao Nan finishes his meal and with food still stuffed in his mouth, heads toward the rooftop. On the rooftop, Xiao Nan directly asks Jiang if he really likes Mu Xiang. Jiang gives vague answers, saying he likes her just as much as he likes all his classmates because she's smart. Xiao Nan presses further, suggesting Jiang should date Mu Xiang. Jiang is shocked and replies that dating is against school rules. Xiao Nan finds this funny and jokes that going to the club is also against school rules, but that doesn't mean Jiang hasn't been to the club. Jiang, in a straightforward manner, agrees that he's never been to a club. Xiao Nan, finding Jiang's responses dull, wonders how Mu Xiang could like someone so boring. Then, moving closer, Xiao Nan teasingly tells Jiang to kiss him on the lips. Jiang is initially stunned, but then becomes excited and confesses that yes, he likes Mu Xiang. However, he adds that their first kiss should happen somewhere romantic. Xiao Nan cuts him off, telling him to stop talking nonsense and just kiss him. The two lean in closer. Meanwhile, Mu Xiang overhears some girls talking about Jiang and Mu Xiang being on the rooftop and about to kiss. Hearing this, Mu Xiang rushes to the rooftop, determined to stop the kiss at any cost. But when she arrives, she sees Chaonan wiping his lips while Jiang is also smiling. Muxiang is heartbroken, assuming Chaonan in his revenge scheme has stolen her first kiss. Devastated, Muxiang runs away crying despite Chaonan trying to stop her. She ignores him and finds a quiet corner where she breaks down, lamenting that her first kiss has been ruined. In her emotional state, she even grabs the feet of a teacher, crying uncontrollably about how her first kiss was taken away. The teacher tells Muxiang to let go of her feet, warning her that someone might misunderstand the situation. After school, Chaonan tries to stop Muxiang again, but she refuses to listen. Jiang approaches and grabs Chaonan's hand, suggesting they should continue their kiss. However, due to overeating, Chaonan suddenly feels nauseous and vomits. Seeing this, Jiang runs away in embarrassment. Chaonan recovers and looks around for Muxiang, but realizes she has already left. When Chaonan returns home, he keeps calling and messaging Muxiang, but she doesn't respond. Meanwhile, at a shop, he overhears two boys talking about the same gang of thugs who had been looking for Chaonan. They plan to attack him after spotting him in the park. Alarmed, Chaonan quickly calls his two best friends, urging them to meet him at the park because Muxiang is there alone. His friends question why they should follow the orders of a girl, but Chaonan ordered them to just come. At the park, the gang leader scolds his men for failing to find Chaonan. Determined to teach him a lesson, the leader approaches Chaonan, but is surprised to see him looking extremely sad. Muxiang, sitting nearby, is heartbroken and crying silently. Seeing her in such a state, the gang leader feels pity for her. He decides to postpone their confrontation and tells him that they'll settle the matter later. As he begins to leave, he reconsiders after noticing Muxiang's sorrow and decides to help her instead. He sits beside her and offers his help, which makes Muxiang feel slightly better. She appreciates that a stranger is willing to comfort her. Meanwhile, Chaonan arrives at the park on a bike, and his best friends question how he got the bike. Annoyed, Chaonan tells them to stop talking nonsense and follow him inside. Once inside, Chaonan spots the gang leader and hears him mockingly saying that Chaonan has brought a girl along for his safety. This enrages Chaonan, and just like before, he confronts the leader with the same intimidating lines. Hearing these words from a girl again unsettles the leader, who gets scared and reveals that the boy they're looking for is nearby with their boss. The trio heads in that direction. Meanwhile, Muxiang is playing a game with the gang leader and seems genuinely happy. The leader tells her that they are now friends and promises to always be there for her if she ever needs help with anything. Muxiang feels very happy. When Chaonan approaches her, he notices she is playing a game with the gang leader and even wearing the leader's jacket. Seeing this, Chaonan sternly tells Muxiang to come with him. The leader, annoyed by Chaonan's tone, grabs Muxiang's hand and asks her if this girl is bothering her. Muxiang quickly intervenes, explaining that Chaonan is her friend. She thanks the leader for cheering her up and returns his jacket, expressing her gratitude again before walking away. Chaonan glares at the leader angrily, then walks off with a defiant attitude. The gang members are stunned by Chaonan's boldness, amazed that a girl could carry so much attitude and show no fear. Zi and Li Ming, trying to follow Chaonan and Muxiang, were also leaving, but one of the members accidentally caused his bat to fall. Panicked, they flee the scene. As Chaonan walks with Muxiang, he repeatedly questions her, asking how she could act like this and why she's associating with dangerous people like the gang leader. He accuses her of putting herself in danger and questions if she actually wants the club to shut down. Hearing this, Zi and Li Ming intervene to calm Chaonan down. They explain that their captain has saved the club from being disbanded by finding a balance between studies and practice. This revelation calms Chaonan, but he still insists that Zi and Li Ming leave the area. However, they refuse to listen to a girl. When Muxiang tells them to leave, they obediently comply. Muxiang then starts explaining to Chaonan that she was only trying to help, but Chaonan ruined everything. Chaonan finally quiets her down by revealing the truth. No kiss happened between him and Jiang. He explains that just as they were about to kiss, but he felt nauseous and couldn't go through with it. Hearing this, Muxiang is overjoyed and repeatedly asks him if he's telling the truth. Chaonan assures her that he's being honest and then insists, "Now let's go home." He turns back, smiles at Muxiang's innocence, and starts walking back. Chaonan drops Muxiang home on his bike, and they exchange their phones again. Muxiang seems nervous, but Chaonan reassures her that he knows she will handle everything well. Saying this, he leaves for her home. Meanwhile, Li Ming and Zi discuss among themselves, confirming that Muxiang the girl is definitely their friend, Chaonan's girlfriend. They reason that Chaonan doesn't let anyone touch his bike, yet he not only let this girl ride it, but also took her to his home. This clearly means their friend is now dating someone. From that day, Chaonan's feelings for Muxiang began to grow. He even exchanged his seat in class just to be able to see her. He orders the boy sitting behind him to take notes for him, and when the boy refuses, Chaonan glares at him until he agrees. After school, Chaonan takes Muxiang to an expensive showroom and tells her to pick out a coat for her father. Muxiang happily chooses one, but when it's time to pay, she is shocked to see how expensive the coat is. However, Chaonan pays without a second thought. Muxiang tries to stop him, but he insists. Once outside, Muxiang tries to reason with Chaonan, saying that they are too different. Her father would never wear such an expensive suit, and if their landlady finds out, she will only harass them more. Hearing this, Chaonan angrily throws the suit on her and storms off. Muxiang tries to return the suit, but the retailer refuses. Thinking quickly, she asks for a larger size and the salesperson agrees. At home, Chaonan tells Muxiang's parents that he will take them out for dinner that evening to a 5-star hotel and that they don't need to worry about the expenses. Surprised, her parents ask where he got so much money from. At that moment, their landlady shows up, complaining about unpaid rent and wondering how they can afford such luxuries. She then starts taking items from their home without paying for them. Seeing this, Chaonan becomes furious and is about to say something when Muxiang's mother calms him down. Frustrated, Chaonan steps outside to sit alone. Muxiang's father joins him and reassures him that he shouldn't worry. He says that one day, they will earn enough to afford 5-star hotels regularly. He then hands his daughter a chocolate, showing how caring and optimistic he is as a parent. This display of affection moves Chaonan emotionally. As he eats the chocolate, he feels genuinely happy because for the first time, someone has tried to comfort him like this. Thinking about Muxiang's words, he reflects on how different their worlds truly are. Seeing their daughter happy, Muxiang's parents also feel overjoyed. At Chaonan's house, his father is in a meeting with some clients. When Muxiang gifts Chaonan's father the coat, he immediately dismisses the meeting. After Muxiang leaves, he puts on the coat, as it was the first thing his son had ever gifted him. Wearing it, he becomes deeply emotional. That night, Chaonan's elder brother Ryu returns from his business trip and starts looking at their family photo. Just then, their father walks into the living room, still wearing the same coat over his nightwear. Surprised to see Ryu back earlier than expected, he asks about his trip. Ryu was curious, and he inquired about Chaonan. His father responds that Chaonan is asleep and instructs Ryu not to disturb him. However, later that night, Ryu enters Chaonan's room and sits on his bed, startling Muxiang awake. Seeing an unfamiliar man in the room, she begins screaming loudly. Ryu panics and the commotion brings Chaonan's parents into the room. Muxiang is utterly confused, unsure who this man is. Chaonan's father scolds Ryu, reminding him that he had warned him not to disturb his sleeping younger brother. Muxiang, now panicking internally, starts imagining the worst. This new man might ruin her. Chaonan never told her he had an older brother, and now she's worried about how her relationship with him will unfold. Everyone in the room stares at Chaonan as he sits in a girly position. Realizing this, Muxiang quickly adjusts herself and she mimics Chaonan's posture and tone. She firmly declares, "Everyone, go back to your rooms. I'm fine. Brother, you can also go now." Hearing her speak like this, Chaonan's parents leave, but Ryu is left in shock. For the first time, Chaonan had addressed him as brother. In the other room, Chaonan's stepmother and father discuss how much Chaonan has changed as he has even started studying. However, his father is skeptical, saying he must need money, which is why he's acting so well behaved. The stepmother says, "You don't always need to be so critical of him." As Chaonan's father heads off to sleep, the stepmother notices that he has wrapped himself in the coat gifted by their son. She smiles warmly, realizing that no matter what he says, he deeply loves Chaonan. The next morning, when Muxiang goes to the bathroom, she is shocked to find Ryu there wearing only a towel. Startled, she asks him what he's doing there. Ryu casually explains that the tap in his room isn't working, so he came here. Muxiang, mesmerized by his well-built physique, finds herself thinking about how hot his body is. Once Ryu leaves, she mutters to herself, "Chaonan's brother is so handsome." Later, as Chaonan is about to leave for school, Ryu stops him and hands him a packed lunch. At first, Muxiang is unsure whether to accept it, but eventually, she takes it while thanking him and heads to school. This leaves Ryu puzzled, wondering if this is truly the same Chaonan who had never spoken to him properly all his life but is now thanking him. At school, Muxiang grows irritated and confronts Chaonan, demanding why he never told her about having an older brother. Chaonan awkwardly explains that he didn't know Ryu would return so soon. He then warns her to maintain a distance from Ryu, and he claims that Ryu is extremely cunning and can sense trouble instantly. Muxiang reluctantly agrees to stay away. After school, Ryu shows up to pick his brother up as it looks like it's about to rain. Unsure what to do, Muxiang glances toward Chaonan's seat, hoping for help, but he isn't there. She now has no choice, so she agrees to go with Ryu. Just then, Chaonan arrives holding 2 umbrellas. He spots Muxiang about to leave with Ryu and becomes furious. Dropping both umbrellas to the ground, he angrily shouts to himself that Ryu has already taken everything from him and now wants to take his Muxiang too.